I never thought my own sister would cut me out of her wedding. But when the invitation list came out and my name wasn't on it, the message was clear. Sarah didn't want me there. She called me 2 weeks before the big day. Her voice was cheerful, almost rehearsed. "Oh, the guest list is just so tight. We had to keep it really intimate." Intimate, except she invited second cousins I hadn't spoken to in 10 years, and her college roommate she hadn't seen since freshman year. I didn't argue. I just listened, my chest heavy, my throat tight. When she hung up, I stared at the phone for a long time. I wasn't surprised. Sarah had always loved being the center of attention, and I had always been the reminder that the family wasn't picture perfect. At first, I planned to stay home and cry. But something in me shifted. If she didn't want me at her wedding, I wasn't going to sit around sulking. I booked a last-minute ticket to Italy instead. A week away, just me, pasta, wine, and cobblestone streets. When I posted the first picture, me smiling in front of the Colosseum, I didn't expect anything. But the flood of comments from family friends started immediately. "Wait, you're not at Sarah's wedding. Isn't today the big day?" I sipped my espresso and smiled. Let them wonder. What I didn't know then was that while I was twirling spaghetti in Rome, Sarah's perfect day was unraveling faster than anyone could imagine. Sarah had always lived for appearances. Every birthday party, every family holiday, every Instagram post was curated like a magazine spread. So, of course, her wedding was planned to be the event of the decade. The venue was an old manor house on the edge of town, draped in fairy lights and rented florals worth more than a down payment on a house. My parents were glowing with pride when they talked about it, bragging to anyone who would listen. "Our Sarah deserves nothing less than a royal celebration," my mom said. Meanwhile, I was wandering through Florence, standing on the Ponte Vecchio, watching the gold shops shimmer at sunset. For the first time in years, I felt light, free from the shadow of Sarah's constant need to outshine me. But as I later learned, the guests at the wedding weren't seeing the fairy tale Sarah had promised. The ceremony was running late, over an hour late. My cousin texted me, frustrated. "She's still not ready. People are restless. Grandma is already complaining her feet hurt." I chuckled at the message, thinking it was typical Sarah drama. But I couldn't shake a strange feeling. It was one thing for her to hog the spotlight. It was another for the show to start falling apart before it even began. And the cracks were only just starting to show. The first text came just as I was leaving a small trattoria in Florence. My cousin Jenna wrote, "You're not going to believe this. Sarah's dress ripped." Like, actually ripped before the ceremony even started. I stopped in the middle of the cobblestone street, rereading the message. At first, I thought she was joking. Sarah's wedding dress had been custom-made, flown in from Paris, and she had bragged about the fittings for months. But apparently, in her rush to make a dramatic entrance, the delicate lace caught on the edge of a chair in the bridal suite and tore right down the side. Jenna added, "She's screaming at the seamstress. Dad says guests are whispering already." I laughed out loud, startling a couple walking past me. I didn't mean to be cruel, but there was something almost poetic about it. Sarah had excluded me for the sake of her flawless image, and now that very image was crumbling before her eyes. I tucked my phone away and strolled along the Arno River, feeling lighter than I had in years. Still, the updates kept coming. The second message arrived half an hour later. "Caterer is late. They lost half the appetizers in transit. Uncle Frank is furious. He says he didn't come all this way for breadsticks." Breadsticks. At Sarah's wedding that was supposed to rival a royal banquet. I pictured her fuming, probably blaming everyone but herself, her makeup artist wiping sweat from her forehead as she shrieked orders. By the time I reached the Piazza della Signoria, the third message made my jaw drop. Michael's mom fainted. Heat plus stress, I think. EMTs had to come. Guests are panicking. Michael, the groom, had always been the quiet balance to Sarah's theatrics. His family was old money, sophisticated, polished, exactly what Sarah wanted to marry into. And the idea of his elegant mother collapsing at the wedding must have been Sarah's worst nightmare. I sat on a bench watching tourists take photos of statues while imagining the chaos back home. Sarah in her half-torn gown, stomping around while paramedics wheeled her future mother-in-law out. My parents pretending everything was fine, offering brittle smiles to keep up appearances. Guests whispering, phones buzzing, rumors spreading. Then Jenna sent the final text of the night. You picked the right week to skip town. This wedding is cursed. I stared at the glowing screen, my stomach tight with a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I hadn't wanted revenge. I had only wanted peace. Yet here, I was thousands of miles away, watching the universe deliver its own kind of justice. And the worst part, the night wasn't even over yet. The next morning, I woke up in my tiny Florence hotel room to a string of new messages. Apparently, the wedding had gone from slightly chaotic to full disaster. The first update came from Jenna again. The power went out during the vows. Whole ballroom went dark. Candles weren't ready. DJ panicked. People were screaming. I sat up in bed, my hair messy, blinking at the screen in disbelief. A blackout. At Sarah's over-the-top manor wedding? It sounded like something out of a bad sitcom. Jenna followed with another. Groom's family thinks it's an omen. His aunt literally said the marriage is doomed. Michael looked shaken. I could almost see it, Sarah gripping his hands with that manic smile she used when things slipped from her control, hissing at him to keep calm, while he probably wondered what he had got himself into. Still half asleep, I scrolled again. The third message nearly made me drop my phone. Michael's ex showed up. No idea who invited her. She was drunk. Started yelling about how he still loved her. My jaw actually dropped. Sarah prided herself on controlling every detail, from the flower arrangements to the playlist. For her groom's ex to burst in, screaming about lost love, in front of 200 guests, that was something money couldn't fix. I pictured Sarah's face, red with fury, mascara running, as she tried to hold it together. My parents would have been scurrying like diplomats, whispering to guests, trying to salvage dignity. And all I could do was sit thousands of miles away, sipping hotel coffee that tasted like burnt toast, reading about my sister's empire crumbling. But then came the text that silenced my laughter. Michael walked out, said he needed air, didn't come back for an hour. People thought he bailed. For a long moment, I stared at that line. Michael wasn't flashy, wasn't dramatic. If he had left his own wedding in the middle of the chaos, maybe it wasn't just Sarah's day falling apart. Maybe it was the whole marriage. I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. A part of me wanted to gloat. After all, she hadn't wanted me there. She had chosen her picture-perfect guest list over her own sister. But another part of me felt hollow. This wasn't just karma. It was tragedy, the kind that scars families forever. As I pulled on my shoes to head out into the streets of Florence, one thought stuck in my mind. If Sarah had simply let me be part of her day, would any of this have gone differently? By midday in Florence, the sun was blazing, and the streets were buzzing with tourists. I tried to lose myself in the Uffizi Gallery, admiring Botticelli's paintings, but my phone kept buzzing in my pocket like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. Another message from Jenna. You won't believe this. Michael's family is furious. His father said Sarah embarrassed them. They left before dinner was served. I sat down on a bench in the museum, staring at Venus rising from her seashell while digesting the news. In our family, appearances were everything. For Sarah, securing Michael and his old money relatives had been her ultimate triumph. And now they had stormed out of the reception like a scandalized royal court. The next text came from my mom, of all people. Normally, she wouldn't involve me in Sarah's messes, but desperation changes habits. Her message was frantic, full of typos. Your sister is devastated. This is turning into a disaster. I don't know what to do. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered that same mother telling me, Sarah deserves this moment without distractions. I was the distraction she had erased from her perfect picture. And now that the picture was torn, she wanted me to pick up the pieces from afar. Later, Jenna sent me a voice note. Her voice was hushed, like she was hiding in a bathroom. Okay, so after Michael's family left, Sarah had a meltdown. Like, full screaming fit. She threw her bouquet at the photographer. The guests were whispering that she'd lost her mind. And then, Michael's groomsman tried to calm her, but she slapped him across the face. I covered my mouth in shock, half horrified, half unable to stop a bitter laugh. Sarah had always had a temper, but she usually saved it for private moments. Now, she was unraveling in front of the whole guest list. By evening, the updates slowed, but the damage was already done. Jenna's last text of the night read, they didn't even do the first dance. People left early. Sarah locked herself in the bridal suite. Michael hasn't been seen in hours. I walked back to my hotel through narrow streets lit by golden lamps, the sound of clinking glasses and laughter from nearby Trado Riaz floating through the air. Around me, life was beautiful, vibrant, and full of joy. And yet, halfway across the world, my sister's perfect day had dissolved into chaos. As I lay in bed, scrolling through filtered photos of Florence on my phone, I couldn't help but wonder, what would happen to Sarah after this? A wedding could collapse in one night, but would her marriage survive at all? The morning after her wedding, I was sitting in a cafe near the Duomo, enjoying a cappuccino and a flaky croissant when the first real bombshell arrived. Jenna messaged, "Sarah stayed at the manor alone last night. Michael never came back." I froze mid-bite. The cafe around me was alive with clinking cups and chatter, but all I could hear were those words. Michael never came back. Jenna continued, "His family took him to a hotel downtown. Word is he told his dad he wasn't sure about going through with the marriage." My chest tightened. This wasn't just a ruin party anymore. This was the collapse of the entire foundation Sarah had built her life around. Later that afternoon, another message. Photographer leaked some shots. Sarah screaming, the blackout, the fainting, guests are sharing them online. Hashtags already trending. I pulled out my phone and typed Sarah's name into social media. My stomach dropped as post after post appeared. Blurry photos of Sarah's twisted expression mid-shout. Videos of guests fanning themselves in the dark. Even a clip of Michael walking out of the venue, loosening his tie, looking furious. The captions were brutal. Biggest wedding disaster of the year. Runaway groom in the making. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Sarah herself. For the first time in months, she reached out to me. It was short, almost desperate. "Are you happy now?" I stared at those words until my vision blurred. Happy? Was that what she thought? That I had secretly wished for her life to implode? That my trip to Italy was some act of revenge rather than self-preservation? I typed back slowly, carefully. "Sarah, I didn't want this. I just wanted peace." But I didn't hit send. Something told me no matter what I wrote, she wouldn't hear it. She had always needed someone to blame, and this time, I was the easiest target. Instead, I put my phone down and walked aimlessly through the streets of Florence. I passed artists selling sketches, lovers holding hands, street musicians playing violins. Everywhere I looked, life was messy but beautiful, real, not curated like Sarah's stage perfection. That night, Jenna sent me one last voice note, her tone grim. Sarah's locked herself in her apartment. Michael went back with his parents. People are saying annulment. Honestly, I don't think this marriage will even make it a week. I lay awake in my hotel bed, the cool night air drifting in through the shutters. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and release. Sarah had pushed me out of her life, and in doing so, she had also pushed away the only person who might have grounded her. And for the first time, I realized maybe being excluded wasn't a punishment. Maybe it was protection. 2 days later, I was on a train to Venice when my phone lit up again, this time with a call from my mother. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me needed to hear her voice. She didn't even say hello. "Do you know what you've done?" she snapped. I blinked, confused. "What I've done? Mom, I wasn't even there." "That's exactly the problem," she hissed. "Everyone's asking why you weren't at your sister's wedding. Do you know how humiliating it was for us to explain? And then you're gallivanting around Europe, posting pictures like you're celebrating her failure." I pulled the phone away from my ear, staring at it as if her words had come from a stranger. Celebrating? Was that really how she saw me? "Mom," I said carefully. Sarah didn't invite me. That was her choice. Silence, then a heavy sigh. She thought it was for the best. And now look what happened. Michael hasn't called her in 3 days. His family won't even answer ours. She's falling apart, and you're halfway across the world acting like nothing matters. Guilt pricked at me, sharp and unexpected. But beneath it was something harder, truer. Maybe if you and Sarah hadn't spent years pushing me aside, I'd be there to support her. But you made your decision long before I booked this trip. I hung up before she could answer. My hands were trembling, not from anger but from a sudden release, like I had finally said the thing I'd been holding in for years. The train curved along the Italian countryside, golden fields flashing past the window. For the first time, I realized that I wasn't running away from my family. I was finally stepping out of their shadow. That evening, I sat by the canals of Venice, watching gondolas glide across the water. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Jenna. Michael officially left. He moved his things out today. It's over. I stared at the dark water, the ripples catching the light of street lamps, and exhaled slowly. My sister's marriage had collapsed before it even began. And though I hadn't wished for it, I couldn't ignore the truth. If Sarah had built her happiness on appearances and exclusion, maybe this was always the ending waiting for her. And me? I wasn't just the sister left out anymore. I was the one who got away. When I finally returned home from my trip, suitcase in hand and skin tanned from Italian sun, the silence in my apartment felt louder than the bustling piazzas I'd left behind. For 3 days, I heard nothing from my family. No calls, no texts. Just silence. Then, on the 4th evening, my sister showed up at my door. Sarah looked nothing like the glowing bride she had plastered all over social media in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Her hair was a tangled mess, her eyes swollen from crying, and her designer jacket hung loosely on her shoulders. She didn't even say hello, just pushed past me into the living room. "Do you feel good about yourself?" she asked flatly, standing in the middle of my rug, like a ghost. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Sarah, I wasn't the one who tore your dress, or cut the power, or invited your ex. That was all your circus." Her lips trembled, and for a second, I thought she might cry again. But instead, she snapped. "If you had been there, maybe things wouldn't have spiraled. Maybe Michael wouldn't have walked out. You abandoned me." That stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You didn't invite me, Sarah. You excluded me. You made it clear I wasn't wanted." Her eyes darted away, guilty for the first time. She sank onto my couch, clutching a throw pillow, like it might keep her from shattering. I didn't want you stealing attention. You always get sympathy. And I wanted it to be my day." The honesty hit me harder than the cruelty. She had cut me out, not because I was irrelevant, but because she thought I mattered too much. That people would notice me, maybe even compare us. I sat down across from her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the smaller sister in her shadow. I felt free. "Sarah," I said softly, "you wanted a perfect day more than you want a real marriage. And now you don't have either. That's not my fault. That's yours." She didn't argue. She just buried her face in the pillow, her shoulders shaking. For the first time, I didn't rush to comfort her. I just watched, feeling both pity and a strange, painful relief. The wedding had collapsed. The marriage had collapsed. And maybe, finally, the illusions that had defined our family were collapsing too. A week later, my parents invited me over for dinner. That alone was unusual. Normally, I was only summoned when they needed something. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won. When I arrived, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My mother sat stiffly at the head of the table, her pearls tight around her neck. My father sipped his whiskey in silence. And Sarah, well, she looked even smaller than she had in my apartment, her once perfect posture bent, her eyes glassy. Dinner began without ceremony. No one commented on my trip, though I caught my mother glaring when I mentioned the word Florence. Finally, she cleared her throat. "We need to present a united front," she said, her voice clipped. "The community is talking. The Fuentes family is spreading rumors. We can't let them destroy our reputation." I put down my fork slowly. "Your reputation. That's what you care about. Not the fact that Sarah's marriage ended before it began." My father's jaw tightened. "Marriage can be rebuilt. Reputation cannot." I laughed bitterly. Maybe if you'd cared more about real relationships instead of appearances, none of this would have happened. For once, Sarah didn't defend them. She just stared down at her plate, pushing peas around with her fork. Then she whispered, barely audible, "He's not coming back. He said he doesn't trust me." The words hung in the air like smoke. My mother paled, my father muttered something under his breath, but I felt an unexpected wave of compassion. Sarah had built her life on perfection, but the foundation had been sand all along. I looked at her, my voice soft but firm. Then maybe it's time to stop trying to live for everyone else. Maybe it's time to figure out who you are without the performance. For the first time, she actually met my eyes. And in that moment, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Fear, yes, but also the faintest flicker of humility. The rest of dinner was quiet. My parents retreated into their usual silence, unwilling to admit failure. But as I left, Sarah followed me to the door. She hesitated, then said, "I'm sorry for not inviting you. For everything." Her voice cracked on the last word. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But I nodded. It was a start. Walking home under the cool night sky, I realized something. I hadn't just been excluded from Sarah's wedding. I'd been excluded from years of a toxic cycle. And maybe, just maybe, that exclusion had saved me. Weeks passed, and the storm around Sarah's failed wedding began to quiet. The trending hashtags faded, the gossip died down, and the Fuentes family moved on as if the whole event had never happened. But inside our family, nothing was the same. Sarah stayed mostly indoors, avoiding old friends who only wanted juicy details. My parents clung to denial, repeating lines like, "It was just bad luck," or "Michael will regret leaving." They still couldn't admit that their golden daughter had built her life on fragile illusions. As for me, I went back to my normal routines. Work, quiet evenings, making plans for another trip. But something inside me had shifted. For the first time, I didn't feel like the forgotten sibling. I felt like the survivor. One evening, Sarah called. Her voice was soft, stripped of its usual bravado. "I'm seeing a therapist," she admitted. "I think I need help figuring out why I cared more about a perfect wedding than a real relationship." I was quiet for a long time. Part of me wanted to say finally, but instead I just said, "That's a good step." She hesitated, then added, "And I want to try being your sister again, if you'll let me." My throat tightened. I thought about all the years of competition, exclusion, cruel words. About how she had deliberately cut me out of one of the most important days of her life. But I also thought about how broken she had looked on my couch, clutching a pillow like a lifeline. Being sisters doesn't mean being perfect, I told her quietly. It means being real. If you can do that, then maybe we'll be okay. There was a pause, then a shaky laugh. Real. I think I can try that. After we hung up, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I realized something important. Being left out of her wedding hadn't been a punishment. It had been freedom. Freedom from the constant performance, the exhausting competition, the need to prove myself. And in that freedom, I found something better than revenge or validation. I found peace. Sarah's wedding had collapsed. Her marriage had ended before it began, but in the ruins, maybe, just maybe, we could finally build something real as sisters. And if not, I would still be okay. Because for the first time in my life, I had chosen myself.